currently the curator of the Natural History Museum at the aquarium, but I've had a long and very engaging career as a marine scientist here. I was really fortunate to have had really good biology professors when I was at school here in Bermuda and then in university. And my real important transition was when I had a chance to become a summer intern at the Bermuda Biological Station. Now we call it the Bermuda Institution for Ocean Sciences. Back in 1977. As a Bermudian, it's really hard to escape the beauty and the power of the ocean. We were always fascinated to find something. As a young kid, walking along the shore, putting on your mask or snorkel for the first time, just seeing that other world under the waves was really just like engaging. I think I've been really fortunate in my career as a marine scientist to have the opportunity to engage with younger scientists, to develop good collegial relationships, and to work on mentoring and advising young Bermudians. My work in Bermuda has been primarily focused on the marine environment, looking at the health of the environment in terms of looking at the abundance of health of corals, looking at the number of fishes we have in our environment. I'm just feel very fortunate to have a chance to work in a lot of different parts of our marine environment. We're going to always face environmental challenges. We have so many people on this planet and we haven't been doing things very well for the last 100 years or so. So we need to find solutions, and young people are going to be innovative and creative, and they're going to learn from the body of knowledge we've accumulated here in Bermuda and globally and help working on solutions. And the solution isn't necessarily mechanical, we got to fix that or change that. It's like understanding what this change is going to look like over the next 20 to 50 to 100 years.
WaterStart launched in 2001. This is our 20th year of operation, a big hallmark year. And in a nutshell, it's an effort to get students access to the outside world, and in particular the ocean. Most students think of it as scuba camp, but that really is just a hook to also then share sustainability, more information about the environment, and to get them engaged in projects to really support the environment in Bermuda. Bird Island is the hub at the moment, 8 acres of pretty much wilderness in the middle of the Great Sound. All of the projects are associated with taking that island and turning it into a base for sustainability. And what we tell them is, hey, if you're shipwrecked on Bird Island and you weren't able to access the food and the shelter and everything that you needed from the mainland, how would you survive? And what could we do? What systems could we put into place on the island in terms of food production, and how do we collect water and power and electricity and so on? How can we do that in an off-grid way? I was always just a beach bum. I got out of school, off came the shoes, and I'd run down to the beach and just jump in the water. I'm not quite sure what motivated me to do that. I remember nagging my parents when I was 14, 15, saying, I really want to learn to dive, I really want to learn to sail, I really want to learn to surf, just everything to do with the ocean. My 16th birthday present was a scuba certification course, and I just got absolutely hooked and loved diving, plus everything else to do with the ocean. And then after teaching for a few years locally, I thought, there's such a need for ocean-based education, and to really get local students access, just to give them the motivation, the tools, and a safe way to engage with the ocean. We live on this tiny little rock, and yet we've got this massive wilderness and very beautiful wilderness, and you can still just slap on a mask, hop in the water, and be in the wild kingdom out there. And it's such an amazing opportunity. I feel, it's our only wilderness to really get away from the hubbub of life. It's magical.
I was born and grew up in Bermuda with an amazing love of the ocean. We spent all day in it, on it, or under it. Then I became a volunteer much later in years with all the wonderful marine, places here, aquarium and everywhere. The Reef Environmental Education Foundation, I met Paul Human, who heads it up, and it's a worldwide organization that does fish surveys by common name. And so he said, Bermuda, we've got a project we'd like to extend to Bermuda. Would you like to help? And I said yes, and oh, am I ever glad I did. And when you do a survey, you just have the board and the paper and the pencil, and you have it's all printed, the names, and you tick one, few, many, or abundant. One of the really important things that's come out of it all is the spawning aggregations, the spawning habits. And not to overfish the spawning aggregations where thousands of them will go to one place to spawn, and leave them alone when they're having their babies. We all know the importance now of the coral reef. That's something that we as children didn't know about. Yes, we've done bad things to the ocean, and there are problems with the ocean, but there's also now the knowledge, and it's right there for everybody to appreciate and to learn if they want to. I'm fortunate to be on the committee of the Bermuda Marine Debris Task Force. Think of the people that have to go on holiday for 2 weeks a year to go somewhere, to go diving or to swim. And here you just jump any time of the day or night. The other thing I love doing, of course, and I still do, is helping Andrew Stevenson with the whale project here. Just be thankful that you live in Bermuda, that you're right on your doorstep, and just jump in there and just have a look. It's so gorgeous, it really is. We are so lucky.
I'm an ocean advocate and I talk trash fluently. So I'm all about ocean plastics, and the reason that I got into that was I took a job with Keep Bermuda Beautiful. And I ran Keep Bermuda Beautiful for many years, helping people realize they need to get engaged in keeping our island and our most beautiful and important asset, the island's beauty, protected. And that it's everybody's responsibility to reduce waste and eliminate litter and to do all the things they can to reuse and recycle. When somebody says, oh, what's one piece of litter on the ground, said 7 billion people. So if we have 60,000 plus people in Bermuda, if everyone took one single action to protect the ocean, that would be so fantastic. It's always amazing when a young person gets a mask on and sticks their head under the water and goes, oh, there's a whole new world under here. And I think that's so amazing and wonderful for people to discover. I've always loved the ocean. I'm a swimmer, I'm a sailor, and so it's natural for me to gravitate to the beach and to the water. And the amount of trash that we're seeing coming in is really horrifying and increasing every year. We've all been warned about this, and we can't be saying that Bermuda is blameless because the trash that we litter overboard or close to the shore and leave on the beach, that blows out to sea and quite often travels thousands of miles to other countries, as we're seeing other countries' trash traveling to us. So this is an alarming problem that can't be solved with a simple beach cleanup. It's going to need lots and lots of people getting involved.
I'm a diver, an educator, and an advocate for ocean sustainability. 10 years ago, I started an organization called Guardians of the Reef. Purpose was to really keep divers diving and to motivate new divers to take up the sport and put their eyes underwater. What Guardians of the Reef was 10 years ago and still is really a passion project, something that I cover all the expenses myself or with the support of family and friends, and is really to create purposeful dive events to bring people out to dive with a purpose. So whether or not that's diving for marine debris, because not all debris floats, most of it does sink to the bottom, so you need divers to get to that, or invasive lionfish culling tournaments. A large cross-section of the community, young and old, that will come out and bring the gear they have or borrow equipment to get the task done. I put my eyes underwater and recognized how beautiful it is under the surface of the ocean a bit later on in life. I think, I kick myself for not having taken up the sport earlier. So what I would say to inspire the youth is now, right now, today, grab a mask, snorkel, and fins, put on a wetsuit if it's a little bit chilly for you this time of year, and just put your eyes on the water. It's a wonderful world. It opens up a whole new realm to explore. And while Bermuda seems small with our 21 square miles of land, once you explore the ocean, it opens up a much larger space to see, and there's so much to do as well. When I was growing up, the ocean was something to be feared one way or the other, whether or not it's with, the Bermuda Triangle and the sea monsters that are grabbing ships and planes, or the ocean is left for spiritual leaders, for baptisms. There was always this resistance to actually getting in the ocean. So I would just say, break down those barriers, those mental barriers, whether it's fear or some trepidation, and find a community, reach out to me or others that are in the ocean space, and get the gear that you need and explore the ocean. It's not to be feared, it's to be embraced, understood, and protected.
I am the chief researcher at the Bermuda Shark Project, and what we do is we satellite tag sharks around the Bermuda platform, because there wasn't a lot of information on Bermuda sharks before we started this. So we catch the sharks, place the satellite tag in them, and then we can track them all over the Atlantic Ocean, or basically anywhere in the world if they were to even move out of the Atlantic. It's important to track sharks because any free swimming pelagic species, any of the large free moving creatures that move, in and around the ocean without a boundary are very hard to understand if you don't have something like a satellite tag on them. And then once we understand them, we can understand what they do, how they move, their life cycles, and then we can have effective conservation. It's fantastic, it's incredibly interesting. You know, I love every minute in the field. I would say for any young people coming up, probably the best thing to do is you need qualifications, you need education, but you need a real go-to attitude. You need to be a yes, jump in, don't hold back, no fear, push yourself, and just get into the moment. And those type of people will succeed in the type of things that I'm doing. It's lovely to, you know, get awards and accolades and even make the TV show. But I think the one thing I'm probably most proud of is getting about 4 scientific papers out, because scientific papers are basically you're adding new facts to the scientific regime. And those papers, once they're published, is the gold standard. So researchers for the next couple decades will be able to refer back to our work. I'd like to see the island before humans developed it. I'd love to see what it was like 400 years ago. I love that kind of baseline data to look at. And then we could know where we're at now, what we needed to do. To see that would be incredible.
I research whales, humpback whales. To understand how to protect them, I think ultimately, the humpback whales are a success story insofar as their numbers have rebounded since the commercial whaling ended. And so right now we're trying to gauge just how fast their population is recovering from being almost exterminated. And I've identified close to, if you can believe this, almost 2,000 individual whales here in Bermuda. And many of them are multiple sightings. And then we match them to their feeding grounds and to their breeding grounds down south. Here in Bermuda, I think we need to protect the areas that the whales are in. Increasingly, we have whale watching boats, commercial and private, going out there. And at times there can be over a dozen boats following, sometimes very closely for hours, whales, sometimes in shallow water, sometimes it's a mother and a calf. So what I would like to see is a protected area, and I think the most obvious one would be Challenger Bank, where for a 6-week period we limit that to commercial fishermen, because they don't really disturb the whales. They're fishing on the edges or moored up on the bank itself. But keep the whale watching boats out of there. So the humpback whales have got a place that's safe for them. And like a marine protected area, once you protect that area, more whales are going to go there, and then they'll spill over and come onto the Bermuda platform and along the south shore. So we'll see actually more whales if we protect that Challenger Bank area. I'd tell any young person, follow your passion. And I got a postgraduate degree in economics, international economics, and started off with the Canadian banks and then the United Nations. So I have no background in marine science, but I wish I'd done this when I was 21 years old. Had I known about it, I would have done it. A very famous whale researcher told me you can't measure whale research in years, it's decades. And so you really need to start this at a young age. And so I just tell people, follow your passions, and if you feel that this is something that you want to be interested in, then do it. Don't worry about a job or how you're going to make a living at it. It'll all work out, but follow your passions.
I'm the Marine Resources Officer with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. We have responsibility for managing fish, fisheries, and other aspects of the marine environment. And the lionfish invasion has become a part of that. Lionfish were popular for fish tanks in both public aquaria and home aquaria. And someone somewhere at some time in Florida released their lionfish into the ocean. Enough people did that they started a breeding population there. Now these fish are normally originally from the Indo-Pacific region, and when they appeared and started actually breeding in the Atlantic, all the biological control mechanisms that would normally be in place in their native habitat were not there to control the population, and the population exploded. They're pretty much everywhere now from Rhode Island to Brazil. They're what we call opportunistic generalist predators, which means they eat anything and everything that they come across that they can actually get in their mouths, which is quite a range of fish. And because they consume lots of things and there's nothing consuming them, humans have to take the role of the predator to try and control their population. Really, I would say that our culling program has been very successful. It's not my achievement, but the Bermuda Lionfish Task Force has actually brought together a lot of different sectors of the Bermudian public, stakeholders in the marine environment. But I'm kind of proud of Bermuda that we managed to sort of get this task force together and, you know, bring people together to actually cooperate to address the problem, because there's so many different aspects of dealing with lionfish that it does take everybody. The ocean, because of the water, is all so interconnected that you have to look after it and care for all of it. I care about climate change because as the climate is changing, water is warming, that's affecting fish populations, where they can live, what food is available to them. So it really is sort of a big picture issue. It's very much all interconnected.
I'm the Senior Marine Resources Officer at the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and I'm responsible for the management of all living marine resources within our 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. Bermuda actually has over 170,000 square miles of ocean that we are actually responsible for under international law. In 2014, we signed an agreement with several other nations to exercise a stewardship role over the Sargasso Sea. So it's a Bermuda-led project. The Sargasso Sea is a very important part of our ocean system. It's named for the sargassum, the floating seaweed, which is a habitat for diverse organisms. The sea itself also plays a role in climate change, in sequestering the carbon dioxide. Conserving this part of the ocean is very important for the health of our planet. Sylvia Earle said that 1 in every 5 of our breaths comes from the ocean. And so we need to protect it in order, for our survival.
I'm trained as a marine biologist. I've been doing research my whole life. Early on in my career, I was very lucky and did some spectacular reef dives. And it was just really amazing to see all that life under this beautiful underwater architecture. 50% of the world's reefs have died in the last 3 decades. We should actually be repairing whatever reefs are damaged, especially if we are the cause of the damage. We have solutions, we can develop solutions, and we can help the reef restore itself quickly. So in Bermuda, the reefs are the most vulnerable to this very highly, densely populated landmass that Bermuda is. And because of all the human activities that go along and are associated with the landmass, every day our life is affected by corals and by coral reefs. Most of the fish that we eat spend at least part of their life in corals. When there are storms and hurricanes, we should be thinking coral reefs. Corals are the biggest physical coastal barrier that break wave energy on Bermuda. I mean, even going to the beach, all of the beaches in Bermuda are made from corals. Bermuda would not exist without coral reefs. So we have to make sure that, we preserve the coral reef.
I'm a marine scientist. I work for the Bermuda government. I'm in charge of the shipwrecks of Bermuda, as well as doing other marine science projects in ocean human health. Well, shipwrecks in and of themselves have a very kind of tacit kind of role. They connect us to our history, and Bermuda's history is pretty much entirely marine. We sort of look at it today and don't think that, but there's no question that everything about our sort of human presence on Bermuda is related to shipwrecks and marine environment. So we all came here by ships. The first humans got here on shipwrecks. A lot of the problems we have were brought here by shipwrecks. Ultimately, I was super interested in, more than interested, curious about, human origins and how we came to be the way we are, the way we sort of act and behave and think, and the way we sort of interface with the world around us. And so I started training as an archaeologist and eventually became an anthropologist, and I worked for about 7 years with 2 Aboriginal groups in the north of Australia. And so I spent a fair amount of time in those communities, and I think that was sort of cemented this sort of cemented this reality of how inextricably linked humanity is to the environment, and specifically the oceans. I worked with coastal people. Being hired to be the custodian of historic wrecks, to look at these shipwrecks, it sort of created a new canvas on which to sort of apply this kind of thinking and understanding the kind of local, in Bermuda, very specific local factors that surround shipwrecks, those who discovered them, those who worked on them, those shipwrecks when they happened, and then the environments that they're in. We've sort of come to rely on sort of data, and that's data has made a big difference to our understanding of things, from the scientific method and data everywhere. I'm also very sensitive to the fact that I think we have enough data. There's always a call for more data, and in some cases we don't need it. We can act like right now.
We are very, very lucky in Bermuda to have the beautiful ocean as our backyard. And I can still remember spending hours and hours by the seaside in tide pools, fascinated by little crabs and letting the little clear shrimp climb over my legs. I just loved tide pools and ocean life. I think as I got a little bit older, I wanted to become the world's first female Jacques Cousteau. That was my mission. I did go on and I studied marine biology. I started my working career in marine life, and it has expanded throughout the environmental range throughout the last 40 years. Lots and lots of time at the aquarium. I was the coordinator for the Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan. I did a stint as the director of the Bermuda National Trust. I've been the director of the Bermuda Turtle Project for 3 decades now, and deep involvement with many of the NGOs in Bermuda. So Bermuda National Trust, I've been president of Audubon twice, a founding member of ECO. The thing that I am most proud of is the fact that I have spent a life working for the love of job and not for money. It's not about how much money there is in the bank. It's about living in harmony with this wonderful planet that we all share. What I would say to the youth of today is the environmental world is an exciting one to get involved in. And I think you should think about where you want to go, what you want to change, and then no matter what it is, just be passionate about it. Whatever you do it with enthusiasm, do it with commitment, and don't give up.
Neil's love for animals began at a very young age. After high school, Neil went to pursue his dream of becoming a veterinarian and studied the prestigious veterinary department of Bristol University. He came to Bermuda in the early 80s to work at Ensmeet Animal Hospital, then as a government vet, and then as an owner and manager back at Ensmeet. When he came to Bermuda, it was love at first sight with the ocean. He took up windsurfing and set the record of windsurfing around the island in just over 2 hours, a record that still stands today. He also began fishing. When one day, out on his boat, he was surrounded by sharks. He was so curious about these mysterious creatures that he put on a mask and submerged his head in the water to take a closer look when he accidentally fell into the water. It was perhaps in that moment that his great curiosity and love for sharks began. It was not long after that Neil and Choya Ming founded the Bermuda Shark Project with the aim of monitoring a migratory path of sharks in the Atlantic Ocean. The more Neil learned about ocean life, the more he wanted to share his knowledge and love for the ocean and its creatures with others. And so the idea developed to create his own television show, which is how Ocean Vet series came about. Neil touched the heart of so many people, whether it was through his dedicated work as a veterinarian, his skilled musicianship, His many diverse interests in sports or his overall love for the ocean and all the creatures that inhabited it. Neil would have been so proud of this award, and I'm so pleased that in his memory, the Dr. Neil Burney Foundation was created with aims to carry out the work that Neil had dedicated himself to. We aim to make a positive and lasting influence, not only for Bermuda's ocean environment, but also for the people of Bermuda, the way Neil had done throughout his life.
My father, Teddy Tucker, started at a very young age. He lived on and in the ocean. His home was right on the waterside. And it started from there. His parents were very interested in the ocean and nature, and he had his own little boat. When he started a boat trip, either fishing or diving, it wasn't how fast he could get to the location, it's what he saw. The cedar stumps that he discovered off of Gurnet Rock in about 30 feet of water were dated at 7,290 years BC. So then that really sort of piqued his interest, because then it was quite obvious sea levels coming up. So he was ahead of his time. And then of course fishing, he could see the difference in the size of the fish. The types of fish we get here now are quite different from in the 40s and 50s. And he has done a map of Bermuda's platform showing the different locations of fish that he used to catch that no longer are seen, or rarely seen. He liked to tell, if somebody had the time and wanted to ask the question, he was more than happy to share what he had seen, his results. Bringing the ocean to the world, or how he saw it. I think that was one of the main good things of his character that he always shared. That's why National Geographic did many projects with him. His last project was doing a National Geographic story on the Sargasso Sea. My father and I were founding trustees of the BUEI and started it from inception in 1992. He was very proud of BUEI. I'm still involved and glad to be.